Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Pittsburgh Current Podcast. I wanted to do that now for however many episodes we've done that. It's a balmy morning here in Beachview, folks. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Current Podcast. This is Charlie Deach, editor and publisher of the Pittsburgh Current. And I am here today with associate publisher Bethany Rue, and also we have a special guest today, Sue Kerr of the Pittsburgh Lesbian Correspondent blog. We're going to talk about some LGBT issues in her latest piece in the Pittsburgh Current. But this is our 10th issue, has just hit the streets on Tuesday. It's our holiday gift guide, and try to do some different things in there. There's a lot of great products you can look that you can if you're looking for a special holiday gift. We probably got something in there from the normal to the strange, so give it a look. Let's go over to Bethany, because we'll talk about a little reverse order today, Bethany, but a couple things that you and I need to talk about. But let's start off with, you want to talk about events first?
Yeah, I would love to, Charlie.
Please do.
As always, I want to remind everybody, this is live on Facebook, so you are always happy to drop a question or a comment in. We got Mike Sorg over here kind of curating them for us, so if you have a question or something you want to say, please do talk to us in the comments. Also, make sure you're following us on all your socials, PGH Current on all the social channels, so make sure you're following us on that. The first thing I want to talk about is our contest that is happening right now, #currently lit. It is essentially a holiday light battle royale.
Wow.
I want to see bloodshed. I'm just kidding. I only want to see Santa Clauses and reindeers. We just are asking you to post photos of your holiday display at your home. Tag us in it, #currently lit. We got a couple submissions rolling in now. One is particularly enthusiastically decorated. The winner will receive the Currently Lit Home Trophy of the Year, which is coveted worldwide.
I've heard of that.
Yes, it's far and wide. It's been talked of. So big deal there. And we'll also send Jake, our visuals editor, over to do a professional quality video of your home display that we will have on our website and that you could send to all your friends and family and talk about how you won. So make sure you're getting your #currently lit submissions in. Also, we are 1 week away from Merry Giftmas, Pittsburgh's biggest gift exchange party. So if you haven't got your ticket yet, please make sure you do get your ticket. The ticket link is on our website and on Eventbrite, and I'm assuming will also be in the show notes. So for your $10, we're going to be at Sing Sing next Thursday at 7. You get your first drink free. You get a holiday snack buffet. You get a chance to win our super mega gift bag, which has hundreds of dollars of prizes in it, like some Pens tickets, a pair of eyeglasses from C Shady Side, so and more. So a ton of fun stuff in there. Plus, we're going to have fun and games like Giant Jenga, inflatable reindeer antler ring toss. All the things you come to expect.
All the normal things you get at a holiday party.
Yeah, exactly. So that is sort of the event roundup for now.
Talking about the follow-up on an event, we were at KSWA Fan Fest on Saturday, Bethany and I, and I do apologize. We were supposed to have a write-up on Monday, and we will have a photo and a write-up this week, but Monday got a little nuts for us, which we're going to talk about. But it was a great time, and it was a jam-packed room. And Bethany's son, who I met Bethany's son for the first time, I think 6-7 months ago, and I have various. I have some comic book Funkos and things on my desk, and I said, "Hey, do you like professional wrestling?" He said, "I never really got into it. I kind of hate it." Well, if you'd have seen this kid on Saturday, he is a convert. So
sure, he came in with his hair all spiked up. He was ready to go.
Yeah, it was fun. But Monday was a little crazy, as we talked about.
Yeah, well, let's get it out there, Charlie. Do you want to talk about that little story you broke about a pregnant Chargers fan getting choked by a Steeler fan at the Sunday night game?
Yeah, it was sort of. So it was the backstory to that is our visuals editor Jake Mizlivchik was at the Steelers game shooting, and there were several, as we've all heard by now, there were several skirmishes, fights in the stands, and Jake was Jake's friendly with a lot of the photographers, and one of the photographers he was sitting beside after in the press room, and they were processing photos. She noticed this photo of the Chargers fan being throat grabbed. We've gotten a lot of comments about, whether choking is the right word or strangling is the right word. But what we can say for sure is the throat was certainly grabbed, and there is no question a grip on around the woman's neck. So that morning, that was probably early Monday morning, and I started making calls to the police, and I was told that there were, the only reports from the night before were, the minor skirmishes and nothing abnormal. And I said, well, I'm looking at a picture of something that looks fairly freaking abnormal to me, and so we just worked this story throughout the day, and the photographer Shelley Lipton, who let me say that she talked to us very candidly. She told her side of the story, and again, when you're in the media, you try not to become part of the story. But Shelley was very much, a firsthand witness to this, and so we ran her account. And I had a feeling that it would kind of go wide, because again, at that point, there really is no story, because no one knew this happened. No one knew, even, and the main reason is because, in which I would later talk to Daniel Minshew, his wife Donna Bryan. They were attacked at the Steelers game by the fan that you see in the picture, she was grabbed around the throat. They're from San Diego. They travel to several Chargers games every year, and this was the one that they were excited to come to Pittsburgh. They bought seats down in the front row, and they were enjoying the game, and there's always a little bit of back and forth between fans, but nothing like this. So one of the main problems was, of course, is that Daniel Minshew says that there was no security help for him. No police officers came. No security he tried to talk to field security, didn't get any kind of response. No security ever came from the concourse. So from that point, we did a follow-up the next day. The story blew up. And one more thing that I would just want to touch on is, so we had the rights to run this photo for 24 hours without competition, and that was, we just like we buy freelancers pictures. We were very shocked when we saw the picture. The woman's face, Donna's face in this picture, the whole thing is disturbing. So I couldn't imagine being that person and seeing that photo pop up. So I talked to some friends and some colleagues in the victim support services, sector, and we did a trigger warning on the front, but then also we blurred the photo. Now, as you see from other media, the photo's not blurred. And through my follow-up conversations with Daniel and Donna, seeing that photo, and then particularly seeing her face in that photo, has really caused her a lot of post-event stress. And so it's really been a tough thing to get through. But I mean, from our side of it, it was a situation where, more people started running the story, to the point that, as far as I've been able to trace, when Pro Football Talk, the NBC, sports picked it up, at about 2:00, we had a sudden large influx of how many, Bethany?
I think when the site went down, there were 200,000 people trying to reach it.
And then there was like a 10,000, right at once, that just sort of then kicked it over the edge, and our site went down in the middle of all of this. So
and what happened was, Deadspin emailed me. Well, I'd reached out to Deadspin. Right. Deadspin emailed me back. Now, if anybody knows me, I've been a Gawker fan from the early days, back when there was Gawker Stalker. I'm talking mid 2000s. So my dream has kind of always been to get on, have a story or have something that I could get on Deadspin. And literally the moment they emailed me that they were going to cover it and link back to us, our site went down. And actually, they did cover the story. I know it's a little blurry, but do you have my screenshot from the Deadspin, the original article, where they said they did link back to us. God bless them. And they said our website was currently broke as hell.
Yes.
So that was Thanks,
Yeah.
Pat. Yeah, so we did crash. I want to give a big ups to Mike Kotler and his team at One Brand Creative. That's who handles our web stuff. They worked furiously. They had to move ours to a dedicated server. They had to upgrade our hosting, all kinds of geeky web stuff to be able to handle the influx of readers that we got from this. So for those of you that were trying to access the story while the site was down, we do apologize. We had no way of knowing that it was going to get that big.
Right.
I mean, we were linked back from Newsweek, Fox News, Daily Caller, New York Post, NBC Sports. It was kind of crazy.
when we get a tweet from Fox News, or when we get linked from Fox News in the Daily Caller, we figure we must have a story that everyone is interested in.
Transcends politics.
Yes, and let me say this: it's we've actually tried to be very, very cautious about exactly how much we talk about this from a point of breaking a story, because again, it was a horrible thing that happened. It really was. I mean, so there is that, and just a little, like, I guess, peek behind the curtain. It's journalism is one of those odd things where you're dealing with tough topics and stuff like that, and it's a weird thing that when something bad happens and you publicize it and it goes wide or whatever, it's kind of a tough line to between, like, oh, hey, our name got out there, but it got out there for a reason that I would rather, of course, that our name did not get out than this woman suffered this.
Oh,
if I said
we
that
could go
correctly.
back and zero that out, obviously. But I think that it did spark some important conversations, like drinking and violence at NFL games, and it's very. I mean, you saw a lot of commentary where people said, "Oh, well, that's what happens when you get a night game. People have been drinking all day. We shouldn't have to settle for 1:00 games because people can't control themselves." So, as much as it was tragic, it is, I think, I think it's good that it started a conversation, and hopefully people will keep talking about it, and hopefully they're going to be okay down there in San Diego. All of our love and thoughts to the Minshews, and hopefully a lesson will be learned from this, and either the NFL and the Steelers will respond with some alcohol restrictions, or people will respond by just not being jagoffs.
Well, we can hope that will happen. So that's one of the interesting things is the police response, and that's one of the things that happened in this story, and that's one of the things that I want to talk to our guest Sue Kerr about before we get into the reason she's here to talk. There are a couple of things that sort of pertain to some stuff that she's been through. So we're talking about a football game where thousands of people are there and are drinking, and I would think even in a crowd like that a fight like that is going to stand out, because all of a sudden there's this fracas. But as Sue and I were talking about before we went on the air, when we have things like protest, and we have things like where activists or just where citizens are out exercising their right to protest, there are cops all the way around, sometimes outnumbering the number of protesters at times. And Sue lives on the north side, man. She lives in the Manchester neighborhood, so she's very aware of what goes on during Steeler games and before and after Steeler games. So, Sue, what did you make of all of this?
Well, first of all, I want to be clear that there's a difference between what's security in Heinz Field and in the community, because Heinz Field has their own security team.
Right.
And so when we're talking about police, we're talking in a broad sense.
Right.
Obviously, it's within the city of Pittsburgh police jurisdiction.
Right. And there are officers in attendance.
Right.
Yeah.
But they are also often there on details.
Sure.
Not necessarily assigned by the city. So really, this is in the, I think, realm of Heinz Field and what kind of safety measures they have in place, which is a very big piece. But I do think it's interesting that in October, a small group of about 25 transgender activists and allies to the trans community were protesting at the Allegheny County Jail, and they were on 2nd Avenue. They were met with riot gear, and at some point they were told to disperse, and when they didn't, when they were engaged in civil disobedience and First Amendment protected activity because it violated the road closure policy, 3 people were arrested. No, I think it was 11 or 12 people were arrested and one was detained and was released later. So when you contrast that response, as a person who's lived on the North Side for 15 years in Manchester, no one seems to be concerned about mitigating the impact of the drinking, the parking, the bad behavior for people who live adjacent to the stadium in Manchester, Central North Side, Chateau. And so I'm horrified by what happened, obviously. But I also am not surprised because people start drinking really early. Their bad behavior in the neighborhood is just rampant. I can't tell you how many urination stories I have on our property, on our neighbor's property. And when we try to get help from the public safety, from the police, from the city council, it's just they're afraid to do anything to tap down the fans because we're talking about two really big things that are part of football culture. That's drinking and making money. Right. And they aren't going to lower the parking rates so people will go into the lots and party. That's why people park up in the neighborhoods. And it's really an issue. I don't think this idea of you have to go to an early game. And I also really dislike this idea that a pregnant woman doesn't belong at a football game. Or that she can't stand up and say to someone, stop harassing my husband. Right. That's, it's so sexist. It's, it's this like 1800s mentality of women are huge fans and it's a fan base but we don't need coddled. We need good protection at the game.
And that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because of the, again, I don't know how you make a comment that goes against the idea that you shouldn't choke anyone, but you certainly shouldn't choke a woman or a pregnant woman or someone who is half your size. I mean, it's just a ridiculous premise, but that's what some of the people said. Well, she got why didn't she could have left the situation. And as someone else wrote, I saw a tweet that said, she grabbed him, she laid hands on, the claim was she choked him before he choked her. And it's an absurd premise. And there's just this, I think there's this want to protect, what people love, which is the NFL and apparently binge drinking. But I was on 1250 AM with John Steigerwald a couple of days ago, and he said, why do we need to open up the lots at 8:30 a.m.? Why do we have to start drinking 12 hours before a football game, or even 4 hours, 5 hours before a football game? And it's a culture that needs to change. But the Steelers and Heinz Field say that they're going to look into things. But I don't know. Do you really think that there's a chance that there would be any significant change?
No, because it happened to a woman who wasn't a Steelers fan, and we've had. Violence against women is part of football culture and violence too. And I find it ironic that people seem to be missing that point, that we have so many incidents of players behaving badly, but the fans are also behaving badly. The idea that you could make an excuse for choking anyone is a problem, or that you would start to get technical about whether it was a strangulation or a choking or a throat grabbing. Right. But I personally don't think that Heinz Field and the stadium authority, the sports authority, the Steelers, it's not that I think that they support this kind of behavior, but the cost to them is so high. So I don't ever go to Steeler games because I'm afraid to go to Steeler games. I don't want to be surrounded by drunken people being obnoxious. I get enough of that at family reunions. So we've
all been there.
I think, but when you look, and I don't profess to be an expert, but it seems to me that there should be in every section some sort of security presence. Fans were talking online about, we were trying to de-escalate. Well, if it's to the point that the fans are trying to de-escalate some sort of altercation, there should be a formal presence there. It doesn't have to be a cop. It could be, security. It could be, but they have cameras everywhere. There's no reason that the technology does exist and the manpower exists. It's the money. They have to spend more money. They have to hire more people, and they have to create an environment. You don't have to have someone there in stormtrooper garb, but someone with a walkie-talkie to get someone there quickly to intervene. And what do you want? You want to get all the women not to come, all the pregnant people not to come, and eventually have this giant group of drunken men. How many people fit in that field? 50 million? Is it?
It's 50 to 75 million, I think. No,
Okay.
it's 50. No, right. I was joking. It was it's like 50,000. It's a 50,000 seat stadium. It's crazy. There's a lot of people there.
And we close the lots early for big games, so they blame all the country fans who are also obnoxious when
Right.
they have these big country concerts. But believe me, as a North Sider, I can tell you when we call because there's a problem, the response is the immediate, I would say, but still they don't do much. They ticket. They would never tow anyone. We'd have never seen anyone be arrested, even when they've done some really awful things. And there's just this idea of like, we don't want to drive the fans away because they're already scared to come into Manchester.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, keep being scared and
Right.
don't do it. Parking. So they need to lower parking rates. They need to.
Yeah.
I don't know what the actual solution is, but I know the outcome should be, considering the quality of life of people in the North Side, would help address other issues.
Yeah. And how many times, and just the last thing, and then we'll move on, but how many times has there been an incident in, let's say, Homewood or Lincoln Larimer where there's maybe a shooting or something, and we have armed police with an armored unit out there, looking for one or two people, or they come just, here we're talking about 50,000 people fueled by alcohol in one place. And there's the stadium security, and then there are, as we talked about, there are a few police there on special work detail, after hours work detail. So it's just, it's sort of like, maybe it's not assessing the situation well enough, or ignoring the situation. I'm not real sure, but anyway, yeah, there's not a whole lot, but let's move on. Thanks for putting your perspective in on that, Sue, because I think it's an important perspective from someone who lives there and someone who's, again, seen this response from other angles. But let's talk about you, Sue Kerr, blogger at Pittsburgh Lesbian Correspondent. One of the, back when your blog was 2005, I believe.
December 2005.
And at that time, and I remember I was working in media and other places in the city, and back then we were all kind of writing stories about, this blogging is coming to Pittsburgh, and and forget about when the social media came. We were all crazy about that. But you were really one of the first people to start regularly blogging. How did that come about, and what made you get into that?
Well, I was doing some guest radio gigs with a local talk host, John McIntyre, and he would have me on, and he sort of dubbed me Pittsburgh's lesbian correspondent. That was in 2004, 2005. And then I heard about this blog thing, and I wanted to do it because I'm a social worker, a community organizer, like President Obama. And we didn't have a lot of tools to communicate in the community. So I was always interested in how we used email. And I didn't realize that websites had this dynamic capacity.
Yeah.
And so I figured it was worth a shot. And my goal originally was to just kind of chronicle life, share events, links, pieces. I didn't really start out saying I want to be a political blogger.
Right.
But and I met some of the early bloggers. Maria Lupinacci was at Two Political Junkies, one of the first women who is still blogging. And there were scores of blogs at that point. I wasn't the first LGBTQ blogger. I was, I think, the second.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure. Because then you start to get into, was Tumblr, did that count in live, what was that? Live channel, live journal, yes.
Journal, yeah.
And live channel. But I can say, I am the longest running LGBTQ blog in Pennsylvania. And we've hung in there for now, we'll be entering our 14th year.
And did you, when you start, I can't imagine when you started it, you're thinking, I'm still going to be doing this in 14 years. There had to, I have to imagine there have been, because look, your blog, especially in recent years, you write about topics that generate a lot of conversation and sometimes a lot, right? Conversation and a lot, and now that you're writing for us, I think you get even more, conversation. But you've really, it's people definitely, I think, react to you in different ways. There are a lot of people out there who really love what you're doing, but then, I mean, you're really, your audience also consists of people who think, just the LGBTQ community doesn't need to be, it's, the people who think that it's, a sin, as the pastors might say. So how have you kept it together, I guess, for 14 years? Because again, I know just recently there have been some pretty horrible things said about you and over some things that you've written. How do you keep that in check to say, you know what, I need to keep doing this, even though, maybe at times you didn't want to?
Well, that's all true. When I began, what I expected would happen was other people would start blogging.
Yeah.
And there have been some blogs that have started. I was lucky enough to connect with some national bloggers, which helped me sort of establish my voice. And I was fortunate at that because I had a tone that I strive to be droll and witty and all that, that other media sites back when they were interested in blogs would pick me up and give me links and all of that sort of thing. So, but I want to, I was always clear that I was not a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm a social worker. And so this was not a media site. What I realized very quickly is I was pigeonholed as a political blogger. And that's because being a queer woman who has something to say and thinks she has the right to say it and claims a space to say it was very radical. The hate started out early on. I would get lots of comments and all of that. But in recent years, it's escalated in a way that I never expected. I certainly didn't think I'd be blogging for 14 years. Yeah. It's my longest relationship next to my partner, Laura. And it's just something that I feel compelled to do because things need to be said. Western Pennsylvania does not have any dedicated LGBTQ media outlet. We have a chapter of the National LGBTQ Journalists Association. We have about 40 people that belong to that. So there are queer voices throughout what I would say mainstream media. But we don't have a lot of openly LGBTQ people in front of the camera on the bylines. So I just always felt like it was important to continue saying things. And I want to touch on something you said in the intro about when you write about things that are difficult, that are hurtful and violent and awful, people read them. In 2013, I started blogging about the epidemic of violence against trans women. Trans community, mostly trans women, and in fact, mostly Black trans women. And this year alone, we have 23 women have been murdered. Last year, we had 25 people, and the numbers go on, they're in the hundreds. It's one of those unspoken things. And I made a commitment in 2013 that I would write a post about each person when they were murdered. That's my thing that I do. My way to honor their life and their death and the other people who are terrified by this happening. But, that draws a lot of traffic. That's what people want to read and they're interested in it. I think in part because they want some accurate details, but also there's that voyeuristic piece of it. And then the comments come in, but that's the kind of thing I feel like I can't stop. Right. Because nobody else has picked it up. And even when we had a woman from Pittsburgh who was in Cleveland, she had moved to Cleveland and she was murdered there. Her name was Felicia Mitchell. She was 45 or 46, just right my age, had all these Pittsburgh ties. I tried to get local media to pay attention to it because there's a local angle and nobody did. And so I feel that there's a very real need for queer voices to continue drawing attention. Yeah. And I have built up all this blog credibility, so I got to do something with it. Absolutely.
And it's not just, we should say, it's not just Pittsburgh. You're known, your blog is known throughout the country. And that's amazing that your voice is able to reach beyond the confluence, as they always say. The confluence.
They don't like me at the confluence. because I'm critical of them.
Good for you.
Back in the day, I mean,
Right.
it was, I mean, when WDUQ used to have Tony Norman as their go-to guy on LGBT issues.
Right.
And it was like, what?
Yeah.
This is crazy. And so things have really changed.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is again through my career here in the city, I've always, when I was involved at the other place and now that I'm here, we've always tried to cover LGBTQ issues. And a lot of that is because, and I'll again pull back the curtain, a lot of that is because Sue would call us or send us an email and say, "Hey, do you know this is going on? Do you know that's going on?" But rarely, I probably can't think of, the past couple of years we had a couple of issues that I had a couple of LGBTQ writers who've covered things when I was working downtown. Do you like that? I'm coming up with different euphemisms for the place I used to be. But really, there aren't a lot of LGBTQ writers covering LGBTQ issues. So that's why when we started the Current, and we knew we wanted to have a blogger from that segment, my thought immediately went to you, and I know it's kind of, as the Current goes, it was definitely, there were some struggles early on with getting things together and getting things up and getting them moving. But I feel like you've really produced some great pieces for us, and I think that just adds to our credibility as a legitimate news site. To you have to recognize that these things need covered, and then you have to then go out and cover them. And I think, so many outlets, don't do that. And so that's why I think it's important that a voice like yours continues. And that's why we're very glad to have you in the Pittsburgh Current. Speaking of which, Sue has a piece this week in the Pittsburgh Current, and it is our gift guide, as I showed you earlier.
It's not anything news or political.
Yeah, it's not anything news, and that's the great thing, is Sue has written things that are political and that are newsy, and then she's just done, like, for example, and I'll admit this, I happened to mention to Sue about her column. I was like, well, I probably won't have room for one because we have the we have the gift guide. And Sue said, "Do you have a piece on LGBTQ gifts?" And I have to admit, I never thought of that. And this, the giving guide, I think, was something that the giving thanks issue was something that we thought about, and Sue detailed some LGBTQ groups, nonprofits that were worth donating to. And then with the gift, just talk to me a little bit about why it's important to include, and then we'll talk about specifics of those things, but why is it important to specifically talk about even these general mainstream topics like a gift guide, why it's important to make sure that it's LGBTQ inclusive?
I was just thinking that word. Because we are part of the community, and visibility matters. Visibility is something that helps us gain resources, gain access. That it's not just Sue Kerr, the lesbian blogger. Mm-hmm. There are lots of LGBTQ people in the region, lots of them creating content, for example, and we need to draw attention to what they're doing. When it comes to shopping or spending money or anything like that, putting money into the community is a way to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. Signing a petition is great. Liking a page is great. But are you willing to make a point to seek out people? And not just LGBTQ people, obviously. We want to support businesses owned by women, businesses owned by people of color. We want to look for things that are sort of outside of the mainstream and may require us to make a little effort.
Yeah.
But through that effort, we're demonstrating our commitment to support alternative voices. It's not even, we're not alternative voices. Right. It's just alternative because most of the voices happen to be cisgender, white, straight men. Right. And so it's important also for those businesses. They need the sales to stay in business and continue what they're doing. And in a lot of cases, like with the shirt I'm wearing that's on my guide, there's a kind of a political message and it transcends. I'm wearing a shirt that says "Yins" is a gender neutral pronoun. Anyone could wear that shirt.
Yeah,
it's not. You don't have to be LGBTQ. And it's funny. And if you're an ally, you buy this shirt and you're like, it's funny because it's true.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
it's so, it's important for people to realize that there are resources out there and that queer people are creating some of the more interesting and edgy.
Do you think that do you think that there's an effort sometimes by people to avoid businesses like that if they know that it's an LGBTQ owned business, or is that a concern? Do you think that they may lose business because of that?
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
But I think that there are plenty of people that are what I call quietly out, and that they're out, but they're not making a big deal. And, you know, you saw that in the late 90s and the early 2000s, especially with elected officials.
Yeah.
That they would say, "Oh, I don't wear a billboard on my head." Well, who does?
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it's you know, and that's fine. It's a perfectly valid way to exist, and there's no problem. But it's not the only way that queer people move through the world. There are a lot of people who do stake their claim and recognize that they lose things. I lose things. You know, I am constantly criticized for being a queer woman. If I post a link about my high school reunion or a story from when I grew up in West Mifflin about the Santa on the fire truck, and people see the URL PGH Lesbian, they're like, why do you have to make this political?
Right.
So it's literally my actual identity is what offends them.
Right.
They don't even read the content, which I never mentioned the word, you know, lesbian. I'm
Right.
talking about something that happened in 1984 when I was 13 years old. So,
Yeah.
so I do see that people, you know, you definitely alienate folks. And we've seen lately how in politics, we're not vetting our politicians. We saw
Right.
that with Teron Jenkins running for district attorney, that, you know, nobody thought to ask him some of these questions before he announced that he was running. And now it's a very complicated situation because there are people who are truly anti-LGBTQ, but somehow still think that they're allies.
Right.
And that's not possible anymore.
Right. And I had a situation, and I'm not going to mention the name, or because again, this was a person who was trying to live you know, their personal life as, probably as you said, as quietly out, and this person was outed because they disagreed with the person's they agreed with legitimate decisions this person was making in their public job, and honestly, so when this was happening to my friend, the first person I thought of was Sue, and I reached out to Sue and I said, so, you know, what can they do? How do they, you know? And you know, Sue wrote a piece that it is different. The story got a lot of news coverage. But I think what you're able to do, and it's what I appreciate, and it's what we try to do too in alt media, is you don't just give the facts. You're able to give the perspective, and you're able to call bullshit when it's bullshit. And I think that that's as important as that's an important thing. I think an important function of media these days, especially. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciated that, and my friend really appreciated your support, and that I think is one of the most important things you do, is that you're able to give a perspective that other people might be missing or refusing to give.
I remember back in I want to say 2008, 2007, Chris Potter wrote a piece about me, and he said, Sue Kerr is still giving people fits and headaches over at Pittsburgh Lesbian Correspondent. And I was like, wow, I've arrived, because I'm causing a lot of problems. And thank you for the compliment. And, you know, that was a good story. And that's where I think being a blogger is important. There's a real space for us because we need to be truthful. You know, we need to be accurate. We need to source what we're doing. But at the same time, we're not reporting in 500 words something that happened. We have an opportunity to infuse our perspective and what we know. It's just, of course, we have to be careful that we're distinguishing. You know, we're not creating fake news. We're actually saying we're writing opinions. These are like basically columns, ongoing columns where people share their life experiences. And I wish, really, honestly, there were more. But the problem with blogging is that it's expensive. And you can do it for free, of course. But you have to not just spend the money on the URL and the software and the web hosting, but you have to make the time. a lot of people start out blogging. Most blogs last 90 days.
Wow.
And, so people, it doesn't make you a better blogger if you stick it out. But if you start out and you write 16 posts in the first 2 weeks and then you don't come back for 2 months, you're not going to have a lot of people reading. And that's why I think it's great to work with alt media and other bloggers. I invite bloggers to contribute to my site because I love having a chance to not have to write every single thing and having different perspectives. One of my bloggers is Trish Mifflin, who is a trans woman who everybody thinks that what she writes is mine. So I get credit and blame for all of her writing because we have very similar styles. Right. But Trish is an actual journalist. So I take that as a compliment that I'm and now I'm a real columnist. So
yes,
I have to stop saying I'm not a journalist, I guess, at some point.
Yeah, and you can read Sue Kerr's column in the Pittsburgh Current, pittsburghcurrent.com, on the socials at PGH Current. So, Sue, tell me a couple of things here before we go. I want to talk about some of your gift suggestions, but talk to me a little bit about Amplify. What is Amplify?
Thank you. Amplify is a community art project where we are building an online archive of Q&As with LGBTQ people who have ties to Western Pennsylvania. It's a 26-county region. I started it in 2015 in partnership with Most Wanted Fine Art. A lot of people know Jason Sauer and his work. And I was brought on as a resident and then asked to create something through the art of blogging. And we are now in our third year, and we have 277 published Q&As.
Wow.
We have more in the hopper, as I like to say. I love to say that as often as possible because it makes me sound like I know what I'm doing. And really what we're trying to do is go out and find LGBTQ people who aren't invited to the table, who don't have columns, who don't have access, who are never called by the media or can't speak on camera. Our one of the things we do is we'll allow people to be anonymous. I have to know who they are, but they can use any name they want, any image they want, and I don't even lightly edit.
Yeah.
I let people, unless they ask me to. But most of the time, I want people's real voices to come through. And I mix it in with my regular blogging because my regular blogging is what brings people to the site. And I want them to read these stories as part of everyday life. But it is an independent project. We have a nonprofit sponsor, Persad Center, and we get grant funding, we take donations because it's a tremendous amount of work. We don't have all 26 counties represented yet, and we have to get out in the community more. We want to capture our elders' stories before it's too late, but because it's an online project, people have to sit down and be willing to spend about 30-40 minutes to complete the Q&A, and I ask a lot of questions.
Right. And I think that on your blog, those stories are separated with the hashtag Amplify before the headline. So look for that. And let's talk a little bit about LGBTQ gifts. And an Amplify T-shirt is one of those things on the
and we're
list.
Working on a new one. It'll be available after the new year.
Fantastic.
So,
We'll talk a little bit about what are some of the. So you wrote a list of several gift ideas. What are some of your favorites on the list? Not necessarily, pitting one against the other, but what are some of the things on your list that? Well, a couple things. A couple that you like that are kind of close to your heart, or things that you really think are great items, and then two. We talked about the Yins as a gender neutral pronoun T-shirt. What are some things that, or even businesses, LGBTQ owned businesses, that other people might want to, go to for their holiday gifts?
Well, the shirt is a big one. I bought these last Christmas season. My partner and I always get matching T-shirts every Christmas instead of, I started with the Have a Charlie Batch Christmas.
Yeah.
Or Charlie Batch, we have those shirts. This company is called Etna Print Circus, and they're in Etna in someone's garage, and it's queer owned. It's woman owned, queer woman owned, and they have some really cool stuff on their website. And if you Google Etna Print Circus or go to the Pittsburgh Current gift guide, there's a link. I really like it because the quality of shirts are there. They do a lot of work. They try to buy from companies that treat their employees well. Right. They're really big about environmental impact, and it's just a small company, but I think people should definitely check them out. I think I have 4 or 5 shirts from there. So I'm a big fan of that particular suggestion. There's another place called Steer Queer, which started out as a zine that was amplifying queer voices and now has a whole entire shop. Lots of really cool stuff. I put up the Golden Girls friend rings. You can buy all 4 Golden Girls and have your little rings, or you can buy your favorite. And then there's tons of other things. And that's one thing I wanted to be really clear about in the guide, is that I was picking something that struck me.
Yeah. But
I encourage people to go to those sites and just look around, because most of the artists are creating all kinds of interesting pieces. Sam Thorpe is on there with some fashion items from their Etsy store, and Sam is real involved in Amplify. They've helped us with our zine, with different pieces. They helped paint our car. I turned my car into an art car, and they helped me with that. And but in terms of businesses, there's some restaurants in Pittsburgh that people can support. There's all kinds of, you just have to dig.
Right. Yeah, it's not. I mean, you can't expect it. There's not going to be a sign on the door that says.
Well, there might.
There's some might, right? They have like a symbol or something.
Right. Well, there's places that have. If you see a sign that says safe space, safe zone, rainbow, pink triangle, that's probably a good clue that there's some queer sensibility there. It may not be that they're owned. My hair salon on the north side is called Motive, and after I talked to them, they have gender neutral pricing. They don't charge men one price and women a different price. And I said to them, "Oh, you should really promote that, because to me that's not just gay friendly, that's queer friendly." Yeah. And when I went to get my hair done this weekend, I saw that they have a safe zone sticker in their window, and I was like, "This is fantastic." That it's as people walk by, they see and say, "This is a place that wants me to be here." Right. And I can be, and when you're getting your hair done, it's a really intimate experience, and you don't want to just walk in anywhere. I mean, especially if you're worried about being treated with respect and dignity. So businesses can get those stickers. There's tons of places that you can always ask me and I'll help someone find them if they want them. But do you have one up at the current office?
We don't, and it actually just popped in my head that we should get one up at the current office.
Yes, we should. And one at Sorgatron Media. Do you have one up? No. See, we're gonna have to produce some. I think.
We're gonna make some and put them on the gift guide next year.
Yes.
I honestly didn't know about them.
Oh, there you go. So, and this is definitely queer space too. So, I think that people, it's important to look for these kind of cool things, and but also recognize that there's more than it just being cool. Like, you don't want to just buy a gift to, if you buy it just to be trendy and say, "I supported a gay business," that's great. But really, hopefully that builds a relationship. And we have some magnificent creators in our community. I mean, let's look at Andy Warhol. Yeah. The creator of the creators in Pittsburgh. And at some point, someone had to start out by buying Andy Warhol's modest works. And there's a lot of potential Andy Warhols in Pittsburgh. Jason Sauer is one of them, who is not gay, by the way.
Jason Sauer is an incredible artist.
He's a great artist, and we have a bunch of pieces in our house. Like, he designed our coat rack. Wow. I mean, we have all these cool things that are, just really very interesting. Now, Jason, but he's a really big ally to us, and he believes in amplifying queer artists. Mm-hmm. And he and his wife, Nina, were the ones that came to me and said, "You are an artist." And I was like, "I'm not an artist. I'm not a journalist. I'm a blogger." I love the word blogger. I don't need any other words.
Well, you do have the words Pittsburgh Current columnist, and we're very glad to have you. And
I don't have a T-shirt, though.
We will have, stop by the office. We'll grab you a T-shirt.
A desk, a computer.
Listen, you can have a desk, but you might not want it. We're awfully crowded in the space. Bring your own computer and chair.
But I get to go to the party next week.
Yes.
I am an insider. I get to go. I'm very excited. Does that mean I'm eligible for the basket, though, the big prize?
I'll check with our HR department. It's me on the HR department.
She's the HR department.
Yes. My partner can enter.
Yes. It'll be the gift basket. The gift basket.
We could put an Amplify T-shirt in there if you want.
Absolutely, that would be great. Yeah, we're definitely taking items.
Send your queer stuff in and get it in this big basket.
Get it in the big present.
And I also just said, if people out there, if our listeners or readers know of other LGBTQ places that folks can support and shop, to drop them in the comments and we'll share them. I mean,
absolutely.
let's just keep it going. Let's get as many out there as we can.
Absolutely.
And I want to mention too, I had 2 allies listed, but one of them I think it's really important is the band Haim. Haim is a indie girl rock band thing, and they're doing T-shirts right now from their joke song Hanukkah, which is a play on Hanukkah. They're Jewish. Oh. They're from Israel, and so they did a shirt, and the proceeds are benefiting the 3 congregations that were part of the Tree of Life shooting, and so. So I think that was important to include. They're not a queer band, but because it has that Pittsburgh tie, and because the shootings had an impact on the queer community, right. I think that we want to try to. Unfortunately, the shirts only go to extra large, which I think is not feminist, but that's another topic for another day.
We'll have to have you on again to talk about that.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Obviously.
In fact, something you just said also made me think of a column we're going to have from Sue coming up the next week or so, an online column, speaking of the Tree of Life and some other things. Thank you, Sue, very much for coming in. Thank you for all your good work. Thank you for joining us today. Pick up the gift guide. And I do want to give a shout out to Jake Mizlivchik, our visuals editor, and our new graphics designer. Our new art director. I got it. Emily McLaughlin. Emily is already, I believe she was sent from some higher power. I'm not sure who that higher power is, whether it's
Thariah,
whether it's Donald
really
Trump.
pop.
I'm not sure who sent her, but thank you for sending me Emily, the newest member of the Pittsburgh Current family. So,
and I spent my little eye, Celine, the Pittsburgh Magazine food writer, who came and joined us.
Yeah, right. An old from my old situation, our friend Celine Roberts, food and drink columnist at Pittsburgh Magazine now. Yeah. Very proud. I worked with Celine since the beginning of her career, and it's very cool to see her branching out and doing other things. And so it's good. It's a good day, and it's a good time. So thank you for joining us on the Pittsburgh Current Podcast. I'll say that for the 4th time, and we will see you next week.